Why do you want to talk about drones?
It's like the new cool thing, dude.
Do you have one?
No. I mean,
you can buy them.
Yeah, remember when they first came out, those like nano drones, the little ones you could fly inside and stuff? They were like $30 or whatever they were.
Yeah.
I bought a couple of those, and I used to fly them when I was in Lancaster. I'd bring them into the station, and I would fly like on night work. I'd fly like in between pods and like try to like find my buddies throughout like the thing.
They have cameras on them and stuff?
No.
Okay.
This is like real early on.
Okay.
Not like nowadays. They fly themselves. These guys, these drone pilots, right? Cop drone pilots. These guys are ridiculous. These drones nowadays, they fly themselves. So like these cops who think they're like, they call themselves pilots, and they have like landing zones, and like, I'm like, this is so ridiculous. They fly them. They are pilots. Yeah. You have to deal with the FAA, not the FFA, but the FAA. Yeah.
You do need, depending on how big it is and how high it can fly, you do need special certifications, I guess.
Yeah, you have to get like
it's like a drone pilot license, I guess they call it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But they fly themselves, dude. It's so ridiculous. I've watched these guys work, and it's not. But that's like, it's a super cool tool.
This is Low Expectations, episode 20. Gary, how are you
Episode 20! Dude, we better have something good tonight.
The drones are
cool.
I
looked at the outline, and I was like, man, this isn't like worthy of episode 20.
Sure it is.
Okay.
We'll get into it here a little bit, but real quick, the drones. I don't want to like skip over this drones thing.
Yeah. We started talking about drones.
How long before drones are used to eliminate threats by law enforcement?
Oh, by law enforcement?
Yeah,
that's not going to happen.
100% it's going to happen at some point.
There's no way that's
100%. Dude, they already did it with a robot. Remember Dallas? Remember several years ago, Dallas, 5 officers killed.
Yeah.
Bad guy is barricaded in a room,
right?
Still armed. Remember they sent the robot in with a bomb and they blew the guy up?
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I'm telling you.
I mean, we already use drones for like strikes and stuff like that, but that's like military.
Right,
use.
but I'm saying, I'm not saying like to go handle a noise complaint, you blow up a dog or something.
A barking dog complaint.
I'm just saying like
county, that's taken care of.
I'm saying for, incidents like that where you have a
bank robbery, holding hostages, fly a drone in there and just zap the dude.
Yeah.
I don't. Maybe 20 years. We'll both be
no way.
Really,
it'll be here before.
We'll be geriatric by then. We'll be geriatrics by then.
Guarantee you, it'll be here before then. So you don't think this episode is worthy of the 20?
I thought it should have been like celebratory and like, dude, they're a little bit heavy.
But that's how we roll.
I know. Yeah.
Dude, 20. It's almost drinking age.
Yeah.
For the podcast.
That's true.
Which I'm sure a lot of people drink just to get through this podcast.
Yeah. They're like, oh, here we go again.
Need some hard liquor to get through episode 20.
That's right. Yeah. Dude, 20 episodes. That's pretty good. Is that like, do most podcasts, they probably don't last that long, do they?
No, most don't.
Yeah.
We're outlasting many.
So we're in like a top percentage or does that just mean we lasted 20?
I don't know what the percentages are, Gary. I didn't break down the percentages before this episode.
All right.
So I'm not sure.
Dude,
I just know that most episodes don't most podcasts kind of flame out right away because people realize, whoa, this is a lot of work. You gotta like.
I mean, in reality, you're the one doing all the work. So like, I don't bear a whole lot of the brunt of that.
This is, well.
Dude, I wore like comfy pants to the studio, and that's unlike me. You know what I mean? Usually I'm wearing like jeans and I'm, a flannel or whatever. To the studio today, I rocked a pair of like my house pants.
Why?
I don't know.
I looked
at my bride and I go, can I wear this? She's like, you're just going to Anthony's, right? I go, yeah, I'm just going to the studio. She's like, yeah, you're fine. But yeah, I got these nice pants, dude. Where are they from? Flint and Tinder?
No,
Taylor Stitch.
They're Taylor Stitch.
Yeah.
From from the store I used to manage. The euphoric year I had out of law enforcement.
Yeah, where you grew that big giant beard.
I had that giant beard.
Dude, that beard was awesome.
I was talking to the wife about it again today, trying to convince her to let me grow that again sometime down the road when I retire out of law enforcement again.
I was going to say, you can't have one now, right?
No.
I can grow a beard.
You could. Mm-hmm. You should. Why don't you?
I don't know. I think because I'm brand new, so I'm kind of like...
Okay. You're saying in your new job...
Yeah,
it's still within the law enforcement community, but you can have a beard there.
Yes, I don't think
is there parameters on the beard?
I think for me there's parameters, but for some guys there's not.
Nice,
depending
on what you're doing.
Yeah, mine would have to be like neat and kempt, and it couldn't be real big and bushy. I'm sure.
Yeah,
but I don't think
that's what mine was.
I might do no shave November.
Yeah,
we
can do that. I'll do that here in a couple months. We actually do no shave November and December.
Whoa!
I do 2 months.
Do you have to drop $100 instead of $50 to do that, or what?
I forget. You gotta put into the pot, support the cause, which is fine. I
love the cause. Yeah. Most of the time, it's like some local
person,
law enforcement family
spouse or kids have cancer, or they have cancer.
Yep.
It's like just trying to support and help someone struggling through something like that. So yeah.
Anyway, we're not there yet, but
no,
we're getting there.
No, it's fair season.
Yeah, man.
You and I, we ran into each other at the fair.
That was fun.
Here's a quick public service announcement that I was reminded of when we were at the fair. And this is for everyone out there who cares
about fairs
to hear my public service announcement.
Oh, boy.
If you have kids and you see an officer in uniform, don't tell your kid that if they don't behave, the police are going to come for them. I can't stand that.
That's not cool. Yeah, you parent your own kid.
Yeah, we're not here to discipline your kids.
Right.
You discipline them. If you don't discipline them and they turn into criminals, then we'll deal with them. But it is a huge pet peeve of mine.
Did that happen to you?
Yes.
So you worked the fair. And
I was working at a local fair, and
somebody said
yes.
Hey, little Jimmy.
Someone that I knew came up and was like, "Oh, you got to behave now. Officer will arrest you if you don't behave." And I'm like, "Don't say that." I'm like, we want kids to feel comfortable coming to us. If you tell them like we're the boogeyman out here to, thrash them if they tell you no. I don't know. It's a huge pet peeve of mine. So I just thought I was like, I have a podcast. I might as well do a public service announcement about it.
Yeah, because you can.
Because I can.
Because you can.
Yeah. So
dude, I got a funny story.
Go ahead.
So my son had soccer Sunday.
Okay.
All right. And we were stuck. My wife and I were stuck. So we had some friends take him to the game, and we were going to meet him at the game. So he's like 30 minutes early.
Gotcha.
So he goes to their house and they have like brunch.
Okay.
And he takes a drink of a smoothie that they made.
Okay.
Well, he has a peanut allergy.
Oh, geez.
So he takes a sip of this smoothie and he goes, "Does this have peanut butter in it?" And they're like, "Yeah." "Why?" He's like, "I can't eat peanuts. I'm allergic to them." And the mom's freaking out. She's texting my wife and she's going nuts, right? And he's been exposed to peanuts a few times, and he basically just gets a bellyache.
Okay.
And then about 30 or 40 minutes later, he just throws up repeatedly for like, I don't know, a good 10 or 15 minutes. And then he's 100% again.
Okay.
So he's at the soccer game and he's like warming up. And another buddy of mine who's a cop, his son plays on the same team, and he's standing with, and it's like, "Man, my belly really hurts. I think I'm going to throw up." He's like, "It's all right, man. Go ahead and do it." And he's chewing on sunflower seeds. So he's like, spitting seeds out, whatever. My son's just like, "Oh, my belly, my belly." The team's over there warming up. All of a sudden, just starts throwing up, right? He throws up. And my buddy goes, "You feel better now?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "You want some Skittles?" He goes, "Sure, I'll take some Skittles." So my son eats some Skittles. He throws up again. He probably throws up like 4 times.
Oh, my word.
And then, so we show up.
Was he throwing up the rainbow?
Yeah. It tasted the rainbow. So my wife and I get to the game, and it's probably 15 minutes before the game starts. I'm like, "Let's go, boy. Like, you got to fight through this. I know your belly hurts." And he looked real sad. And he's like, "I don't want to play. I just want to go home." I'm like, "You're not going home." It was raining.
Yeah.
I go, "You're not going home."
These are moments. These are moments.
I go, "Listen, you have a bellyache. You know how this works. You've done this before. We've told you, if you're going to taste something that someone made, you ask if it has peanuts in it. We've told you that."
Yeah, this is your fault.
Yeah, it's your fault. Exactly. Yeah. So I'm like, I'm like, I said, you already threw up, right?
You should threaten to call the police.
Yeah, right.
Anyways, sorry.
So I'm like, you already threw up, dude. You're good. You're on the other side of this. You got to fight through this for your team. You got to fight through this. So he didn't start. He's usually a starter. He didn't start. And I saw him sitting over there and he's just like, you could just tell he wasn't comfortable. He's sitting on the bench and like, he's still not good. About 5 minutes go by and I start seeing him take off his shirt. Like he had like a goalie shirt on or something like that. He takes it off and he starts warming up. I'm like, oh yeah, the boy's going in. So he fought through this little struggle and he wound up playing the majority of the game. He missed
awesome.
like the first 5 minutes and then he was his regular self running around like an absolute beast.
I love it.
Yeah, it was so good.
I love it. That is one thing I love about sports.
What?
Just those like moments.
Yeah.
Where you can like talk to your kids about life lessons. Yeah. Life lessons learned through sports.
Yeah. Like, listen, it's not fun throwing up, right? No, it's not fun when your belly hurts. It's not great. Like nobody likes that, but like life isn't easy.
Right.
And you're there for a team sport. Like this wasn't like wrestling or something like that. It's a team sport. Your team needs you. Like it's okay to not be 100% and still perform to the best of your ability. So like, it was just a cool moment. And then we yelled at him, of course, cause like he ate the peanuts, but then like later on after the game, we're like, hey, you want a sushi bowl? So we got a sushi bowl for him.
And he was fine.
He destroyed that. He ate like a little bit of a sub and then he had some hot wings. Like, so he was 100% after a few hours.
That's
but
really
like,
weird.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So then he tries to get my wife. He's like, when I'm talking to him about, hey, you got to do this for your team. Like you got to fight through the pain. He's like, but mom, my throat's itchy and scratchy. I go, your throat's not itchy or scratchy. That you've never had that before. And I'm like, oh man, I hope not. We don't have the EpiPen with us. But anyway,
that's cool.
So
that's a cool story.
Yeah.
I like it.
Dude, he had a rough week, man. Dude, he got punched in the back of the head at school.
Ugh.
Dude, these little monsters.
Did he go after this?
No.
Kid? Have we had that conversation in the Lowe household? Like you don't start a fight, but if someone wants to get after you.
We have a long time ago, and I haven't really been keeping up with that. So he was taken by surprise. This was a guy who was like kind of not a friend, but like
someone he knows.
It wasn't like that big of a deal. They were talking trash, playing basketball or whatever. And he took a rebound and the kid just wailed on him like 4 or 5 times. Thankfully, one of his buddies jumps in who's bigger, threw the kid off, and then it was good. But
it brought up that conversation again in the Weaver house.
Oh, when I told you about it before.
Yeah, because I knew about it, so it came up again in the Weaver.
One of
household.
the biggest things I told all of my kids and my girls, I didn't have to do this so much because they're very good with like those who have disabilities. Like they're very compassionate girls.
Yeah.
My son, however, like he just doesn't think of things like that. So I told him, I was like, if you ever see someone with disabilities being like bullied, I go, you immediately step in. I go, there's not a chance you don't give them any moment to mess with someone like that. So we've had that conversation numerous times, but this was like mano y mano, you know, I mean, it was just a thing.
Caught off guard.
Yeah. Off guard. So we did some spear lessons again and some takedowns.
I love the spear lessons, man.
Yeah, dude, spears.
That's still my good. I don't know. It's still my go-to. I used to be a spear instructor.
Yeah. I remember that.
And it's still, I'll be honest, I don't remember a lot about the system.
Yeah.
But the one thing I remember, that like forearm across the chest.
Yeah.
I use that a lot.
Finger splayed outside 90.
Outside 90.
Yeah.
Boom. It works.
It does.
It's good.
Yeah. It's a good crowd move. Moving through the crowd.
Yeah.
If you're at an Eagles game.
Yeah.
Just walking through. Go get your Coke.
And you can't tase anyone anymore. So now you got to go hands on again. So might as well.
Might as well.
Yeah. So yeah, we got quite the episode, Gary. I think it's quite the episode.
Yeah,
you said it's a little heavy.
I always come with low expectations. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, we're gonna talk about Indiana. I think Indiana judge saying you, the taxpayer, will pay for this criminal to have sex change surgery. We'll talk about that. We're also talking about a baby murder.
Yeah, that one's interesting.
It's weird. I'm going to read the whole article. But before we get into
you're going to read the whole article?
Yeah, because there's so much packed into that article. Okay. I'm not going to read it.
I'll take a pee break during that time.
I'm not going to read it beginning to end. Like we're going to work our way through it.
Oh, yeah. All right.
Work our way through it. So, but before we get into that, just real recently, ICE released some crazy
Oh, yeah.
stats. Did you see these stats?
Yes.
So ICE released this non-detained, non-citizen convicted criminal stats. And right now in the country, there are 13,099 non-citizens that are not detained that they know are in our country that have convictions for murder. Okay. In addition to that, there's 15,811 non-citizens who have been convicted of some level of sexual assault who are running around our country.
Yeah.
In total, there are 425,431 people who have been convicted of crimes that are in our country right now, just not detained, don't know where they're at. Or a lot of the problems is these sanctuary cities won't detain them, like won't cooperate with ICE.
Right.
So if they get them, they're not being turned over to ICE, that sort of thing, which is crazy. And then in addition to that, there's over 222,000 people with pending criminal charges right now. In addition to those numbers I just gave you, another 222,000 plus in the country that haven't been convicted but have pending criminal charges.
In their country of origin or in the United States,
That is a good question. I don't know.
Okay.
And
either way, it doesn't.
Right.
I mean, I think it matters, but
the other thing about, I think it's outside of our country.
Okay.
I think
so in their country of origin,
or
where they came from.
Right. In addition to that, the other thing I don't know about this, like where do these numbers span?
Yeah,
like,
I was going to ask that next.
This isn't just during the Biden-Harris presidential, them being in power.
Sure.
It spans
however long
before them. But these numbers just recently came out right around the time Kamala Harris went to the border and did her little like photo op in front of part of the wall that's Trump
actually
built.
There. Yeah. That's actually there.
So yeah, I was looking at these numbers and I was like, this is crazy. So it got me thinking. I'm like, well, on average, how many murders are committed in the USA every year? And so 2022 is the last year, I guess they have stats. I guess they don't have them yet for 2023, but 2022, there was 21,156 murders in all of the USA.
21,000. And we have 22,000 murderers who were convicted.
13,000.
13,000
that are convicted in the country right now. And then another, I think it's over 1,000 who have pending charges for murder that are also just on the lam in the USA.
It's a great strategy for a foreign country. Like release them from your country and be like, go to the USA, don't come back.
Right. And we talked about this last episode that there's fact-checked reports out of Venezuela that's what they did. They opened up their prisons and many of those criminals came across illegally into our country.
That's wild.
And those during the Biden-Harris administration so far. So yeah, it's just
it's kind of mind-boggling. That's a lot of people.
It's mind-boggling to me, So
those are mid-sized, like normal-sized towns.
So basically,
like 20,000 people is like a decent-sized town.
So basically, if you have over 13,000 people here who are convicted of murder, and then another 1,000, 2,000 who have criminal murder charges pending, and they're in this country, even if you say some of those came in before the Biden and Harris administration, and we don't know how many came in during the Biden-Harris administration, the question still has to be asked, why isn't something being done about it?
Right.
So, Harris goes to the border. She does this photo op. She finds border agents that are willing to talk to her.
Or have to talk to her, one or the other.
Right. What would you do? I'd
respectfully decline. Like I would do that with anybody. Like I'm not really interested in all that stuff. So I don't like being used, Anthony.
Yes, exactly.
So I don't like to be in photos where it's like, look at us, we're the greatest thing ever. And then
I'd have a very difficult time being directed to speak to the border czar who hasn't come to the border in the last 3 years. She hasn't been to the border in, I think, 3 years.
Sure.
Okay. And she was the border czar, allegedly, has done nothing to support Border Patrol has done nothing to protect this country from the influx of criminals that are coming in, the influx of illegal aliens that are coming in, the influx of fentanyl that's coming in, has done nothing in her administration to prevent that. And then all of a sudden, she's 40 days or however many days out from election. Oh, I'm going to go to the border now and do a photo op and then talk about how securing the border is important. For 3.5 years, you have said nothing about it. You haven't cared about it. In fact, you've embraced it. You've encouraged it. You've wanted it.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden for votes, you're trying to say, no, we need to shut the border down. I'd have a very hard time if I was a Border Patrol agent being told you need to go and talk to this person and have a photo out with this person. I would respectfully decline to do it. I would probably.
Maybe I would ask, okay, can I actually talk to her?
Can I actually ask questions?
Right. Or can I tell her some of my experiences?
Yeah.
And if it's a no, then I'm like, you can find somebody else, I'm sure.
Can we have a member of the press with me when I speak to her?
Can I record it?
Yes. Well, they're not going to let you record it.
I know.
But can I have a member of the press and not the mainstream media? Like someone else. I don't know who, but someone else that isn't mainstream media, that isn't bought and paid for by the Democrat Party.
Yeah. It would take someone with guts to do that.
Yeah. But you can do that respectfully.
I think so. You should do it respectfully in reality.
100%. 100% you should do it respectfully. But, I was watching her talk to these 2 Border Patrol agents. I'm sure she talked to others, but there were 2 that were all over the news that she's talking by one of the walls or fences or whatever. And I was just like, I wonder what those guys are thinking. I wonder what they're thinking. And then she put out all this stuff afterwards, and good on the Border Patrol Union. They
blasted her
with heat bombs, man.
Yeah.
They were like, absolutely not. She has done not like they like refuted everything she was, saying all this stuff about the Border Patrol. And they're like, you have done nothing for the last 3.5 years.
And in fact, she crushed him remember the whipping incident?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which was nothing.
Right.
I think even on one of our episodes on Diakonos, we talked about that.
Did.
The whole thing that got blown out of proportion.
The problem is this, Anthony, I shouldn't say in most. When a chief of police comes up to a line guy or someone with some authority, a mayor comes up to a line guy, just a guy doing their job, and it's like, hey, how's life? How's the city? How's work? How's your environment at work? Like, you can't be honest because you put a target on your back. It's not safe to do that. At least in my experience, it was never safe to do that.
Yeah.
A target's put on your back. You're the guy that's not towing the line.
But I guess
you're making it harder for this person or that person to do their job. You can't be honest.
The question is, does that make it right to not be honest?
That's a great question.
I think there's certain situations where you have to put that target on your back. And I'll be perfectly honest. In 2020, when we were going through some of the things we were going through in Lancaster City, and I'll hand it to the mayor. She came in and spoke to the platoons and stuff. But I was very direct and very clear with her and asked very direct questions about some of the things she was doing. And I did it in a respectful manner. And afterwards, I shook her hand and thanked her for coming in and talking to us. But I was furious, and I let her know that I was really upset. And there were other people within the agency that I had conversations with that I was like, this is like what we're doing is wrong. You know, I think there's a time and place for it. And I think for the Border Patrol, and if you are put in that position, that's the time and place. You're talking to the person who has allegedly been given the power to help you do your job, which is what a leader is supposed to do, help their people perform their job. And instead, that leader has thumbed their nose at the law of the land and said, no, this is a good thing. I want people to break the law and come into this country illegally. And I don't care if fentanyl is coming into the country at rates like astronomical, historical rates.
Right. or
I don't
sex offenders
care
or murderers.
if
or,
that fentanyl's killing people. I don't care that sex offenders are coming in this country and raping people. I don't care that murderers are coming in this country and murdering people. They have nothing to say. She has nothing to say about it when it happens, when an illegal alien harms an American citizen. She has everything to say when a police officer does their job. And that's the problem with her. You know, if you want to be the leader of the country, then you're here to serve the people of the country, to protect the people of the country. That's your primary role. And for you to not do that for 3.5 years and then act like you care, I'm sorry. If I'm a Border Patrol agent and I have to meet with you, you're going to hear about that. Honestly, I don't care if I lose my job.
Right. If you're
like,
a boss,
if you are a boss and you're put in that position, that's going to be a tough decision. But it's time to hit your knees, pray, and say, Lord, this is what I know I need to do. I need to speak truth in this situation. It may cost me my job because she's the vice president and she's probably going to go to my boss and be like, that guy's out.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The problem is this, Anthony, and here's the thing. As if I know all the answers to everything. The country is so polarized over this issue. There are some people who want an open border and there are some people who don't, right? And I understand that the law of the land is you're not supposed to come over here illegally. The problem is that's changing because of the people. The people want, it seems, an open border because obviously the country's split, right? You know that. I mean, the polls show that.
But this shouldn't be a polarizing issue. This shouldn't be a Republican Democrat issue.
I agree with you. I'm just saying the people have two completely opposing views.
So do you think
and the leader of one side and the leader of the other side just represent the people on both sides?
So do you think the majority of this country wants open borders?
I think it's split. That's the problem.
I don't think it's split.
I don't think so either, but
that's what you just said.
Right, but that's why though. Because most people aren't single issue voters anyway.
Right.
But like if that was actually a big issue, if it was a big issue for the majority of the people, this would be a landslide election.
Well, and maybe it is a big issue now. It wasn't as big.
It's not a big issue.
No, I think it's a big issue now.
And the election is going to be won by very few electoral votes.
But you don't think that going into the election, the border crisis is an important thing that people are thinking about? Or you're just saying it's not, it's much closer. The two opposite sides are much closer together than, I don't know. I think the majority of this country is like, what are we doing?
But Anthony, if that was the case, the polls would be completely different.
Yep. But what I'm saying is the border issue wasn't a huge issue in 2020.
Right. It wasn't.
In 2024, I think it's a huge issue.
But it's not
for people going to the polls.
Maybe. The polls don't show that.
Well, I haven't seen any polls where they specifically asking people. It seems like it's a much bigger issue for people in 2024 than it was in 2020. Because in 2020, it wasn't.
Yeah, there wasn't the influx of.
There wasn't.
Or the media wasn't covering it, or.
No,
it wasn't a talking point. It wasn't whatever.
Under Trump, people were coming into the country illegally.
Right.
But as soon as Biden and Harris got in office, they completely destroyed, dismantled a whole bunch of things that Trump had in place. And that just opened the floodgates.
Sure.
You know, I don't care how much they say they care about the border and securing the border. When they came into office, one of the first things they did was dismantle things that Trump had put in place to try to keep a lid on the amount of people coming into the country illegally. So I don't know. I can't see. Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, basically the landscape of politics right now and the landscape of these issues that we talk about on the podcast, like the border, is a picture of where we are as a country and society.
Yeah,
I think you're right.
On every issue.
On every issue.
Yeah.
Including this next issue that we're talking about.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing. Like I could be upset, I could get frustrated, but like in reality, it's a mirror of what the people want, which is crazy. Like that's just like that's hard for me to swallow because it's such a it seems so obvious to me.
Right.
That there's the right way and the wrong way. but it's not that way anymore.
If our elections are legitimate, I agree with you. And I think that's a big question right now for people in this country that are asking is, are our elections secure? Are they legitimate? And, the Democrats be like, oh, Republicans just didn't accept that. The same thing happened in 2016 when Trump won. Hillary came out and said, oh, the elections aren't secure, Russia and misinformation. And they said the same thing. So on both sides of the aisle, everyone's like, are our elections secure? Are they legitimate? Can we trust them?
Yeah.
And the way that Harris is campaigning right now, it's a dumpster fire. Her campaign is a dumpster fire. And it seems like she has no idea like what she's doing. And part of me is like, why does it seem like she doesn't care? Like, why does it seem like she's just like, man, whatever. It's almost like she thinks she's going to win no matter what, which bothers me and concerns me. And I know that's getting, towing the line with conspiracy stuff.
Yeah.
But I just, like, any person has any common sense looking at her campaign is like, what is she doing? Like, even if you like her, even if you agree with her, even if you're planning on voting for her, you have to look at her campaign and be like, she's not doing a great job in this campaign. Like, you have to be able to, any self-introspective person should be able to look at this and be like, okay, yeah, for the last 3.5 years, she has been kind of in charge of the border, and they did use the word border czar. Biden used that word to describe her. She did nothing. And now 2 months before the election, she does a photo op. It's been 3 years since she's been at the border. She does a photo op and now talks about securing the border, where we have, I don't know how many clips of her talking about how illegal aliens need to be coming to this country. We need to give them this. They need to be able to vote. They need to do this and that and get jobs and get phones and be given housing. I'm like, how do you look at that as a normal person with a brain and be like, oh yeah, I think she's campaigning really well right now.
But if you talk to someone who is in line with her or has her values, they would be like, it's obvious that she's the obvious choice. So like,
but then that person, the very next question you should ask that person is, are you for border security? Or are you not for border security? They have to have an answer. So if they say, oh, I'm for border security, I'm like, well, then how can you vote for someone who's done nothing about it for the last 3.5 years? And if they say, no, I'm not for border security, we should have open borders, I'm like, well, then how can you vote for her now? Because now she's saying we need to secure the borders.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Like, you can't have it both ways.
Mm-hmm.
And so it just reeks of trying to like get people over onto her side who are already so polarized, they're going to vote a certain way.
Yeah. I mean, everybody knows who they're voting for at this point.
Right.
I mean, they knew that before election season.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Dude,
it's wild to me. Sometimes I'm just like, maybe I'm the problem. I think I can generally like critically think my way through things, but maybe I'm the problem. Maybe I'm the moron. Maybe I'm the idiot.
Yeah. I'm just glad that it's postseason baseball season. I'm super ecstatic about that. I love postseason baseball. I'm super pumped about it because I can watch that. You know what I mean? Like this stuff, it's just at this point, you just kind of throw up your hands and be like, all I can do is try to talk to people I know. And
it definitely causes me to wonder if I care too much sometimes about it.
I don't think it's a bad thing to care, for sure. Because like, if you do care about your kids and you actually have like some type of love for our country and what it was founded on, and, the standards and I guess the things that we love as a country, or that we used to love as a country, as those things get pulled away, that's true of anything in life, right? When stuff starts getting pulled away that you love or repressed or whatever, obviously you're going to have some type of emotion toward that.
Right. But sometimes when that stuff that you love gets pulled away, it shows how much you actually love it and how it may be more important and more loved in your life than it should be. And I think that's something I wrestle with.
But we should love right.
We should love truth. Absolutely.
We should love right. We should love truth. We should love good.
Right.
And we should oppose and hate all that is against it. So I'm with you, Anthony. It's just,
I think for me, it's hard. The balance of it is hard sometimes.
Sure.
Like, cause I'm just like,
and it's like in reality, it's election. So there's times and seasons for everything, right? It's election season.
right.
So come January, right, when the new administration, whichever one it is,
right.
it's going to dwindle, right? We're going to be talking about something else. And then there'll be a cycle again 2 years from that, which will be the midterms. And then it'll be, 4 years. 4 years from now, we'll be talking about the same thing.
Sure.
But
yeah,
ultimately, I'm just grateful that, I am a citizen of this world,
right?
But I'm just passing through. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And try to do the best I can while I'm here, and try to do what is right.
Yeah.
And think correctly, rationally, and love God and love others.
Yeah.
That's the goal, I think. And to love others is to keep them safe. So the border is a big deal. Like no matter where you stand on it, I think it matters because ultimately we are to care for people and especially people of our nation.
Right.
Yeah.
And even care for the people that are coming over.
Yeah.
And we know for a fact that there's over 300,000 kids right now that are unaccounted for in our country.
That's crazy to me. I can't believe that's not a bigger story.
And
the criminal things, that's a big deal.
Right.
The missing kids is wild to me. I heard they're I also heard this one that they're basically recycling kids. So like they'll bring kids over as part of a quote family and they're all drugged up and stuff.
Right.
They'll get in, the couple will get in and then they'll recycle the kids. So that couple's in, they'll bring them in with another couple or another person. Right. And then like, it's just this constant thing and they're drugging these kids up. I mean, if that stuff's true, I mean, what are we doing?
Yeah.
And
we are not loving those people.
Correct.
We're not loving those kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, that's kind of like a blemish on our society right now is our hatred of children.
Yeah. For sure.
Our country, our society, our culture, whether we want to admit it or not, hates children. And this next story that we're going to talk about is a perfect example of that.
Yeah. This one's wild. Like
this one's crazy. So this first popped on my radar because I follow, the illustrious Ben Crump on X.
You love that guy,
the Deceiver.
The Deceiver.
He put out this tweet and he had it attached to this news story. And he said, Amari Marsh's story reveals the devastating impact of pregnancy criminalization and health disparities faced by Black women. After enduring a second trimester loss, Amari was unjustly charged with murder and spent 22 days in jail facing a life sentence. So she endured a second trimester loss. That's how he framed this. And he had the story attached to it. So I brought up the article. I wanted to see.
So second trimester is pretty far.
Yeah.
So that would be
a baby in second trimester can survive.
Weeks? Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that 20 weeks or so? 20.
Dude, you're going to start getting me into problems here.
It's long in a pregnancy.
There's 3 trimesters in a pregnancy. Once you get into the second trimester.
No, you're 2/3 through, man.
Yeah. And a baby born in the second trimester can survive like that over and over again. So I opened up this article and we're going to work our way through the article. There's so much in this article and I just think it's important to read it because the way this is on CNN.com, the name of the article was, she was accused of murder after losing her pregnancy. This is how they frame this.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the name of the article.
South Carolina woman now tells her story. She was accused of murder after losing her pregnancy. Okay. So I opened this article. This is out of Orangeburg, South Carolina.
Before you start reading it.
Sure.
Just on the title of itself. Read it again. Read just the title.
She was accused of murder after losing her pregnancy.
Okay. So we're going to read this article and then I want you to think about, listener, I want you to think about what the name of the article is and then what the article actually says. Right. Or what actually happened.
Yeah. And how they word stuff in here. So Amari Marsh had just finished her junior year at South Carolina State University in May of 23 when she received a text message from a law enforcement officer. That message said, quote, "Sorry, it has taken this long for paperwork to come back," the officer wrote, "but I finally had the final report and wanted to see if you and your boyfriend could meet me Wednesday afternoon for a follow-up." Marsh understood that the report was related to a pregnancy loss. Again, it's pregnancy loss she'd experienced that March. She said, During her second trimester, Marsh said she unexpectedly gave birth in the middle of the night while on a toilet in her off-campus apartment. She remembered screaming and panicking and said the bathroom was covered in blood. I couldn't breathe, said Marsh, now 23. The next day, Marsh woke up in the hospital, she said. A law enforcement officer asked her questions. Then a few weeks later, she said she received a call saying she could collect her daughter's ashes. At that point, she said she didn't know she was being criminally investigated. I don't know. Having police talk to you should be a clue that maybe they're involved in the investigation. Whatever. Yet 3 months after her loss, Marsh was charged with murder, homicide by child abuse. Law enforcement records show she spent 22 days at Orangeburg Calhoun Regional Detention Center, where she initially was held without bond, facing 20 years to life in prison. This August, 13 months after she was released from jail to house arrest with an ankle monitor, Marsh was cleared by a grand jury. Her case will not proceed to trial. Okay, so we're like 4 paragraphs into the story. We still have no idea why she was charged with murder. It's just a pregnancy loss. Article continues. Her story raises questions about the state of reproductive rights in this country, disparities in healthcare, and pregnancy criminalization, especially for Black women like Marsh. More than 2 years after the U.S. Supreme Court issued its Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization decision, which allowed states to outlaw abortion, the climate around these topics remain highly charged. Again, right now, this article is making this about abortion rights, the rights to murder a child. That's what they're making this about.
Yep.
Marsh's case also highlights what at stake in November. 61% of voters want Congress to pass a federal law restoring a nationwide right to abortion. I don't know where they get that percentage. According to a recent poll by KFF, I don't know what KFF is. Oh, sorry. By KFF, the Health Policy Research Polling and News Organization that includes KFF Health News. These issues could shape who wins the White House and controls Congress, and it will come to a head for voters in the 10 states where ballot initiatives about abortion will be decided. This case shows pregnancy loss is being criminalized around the country, said U.S. Representative James Clyburn, a Democrat and graduate of South Carolina State University, whose congressional district includes Orangeburg. This is not a slogan when we talk about this being an election about the restoration of our freedoms, Clyburn said. First of all, losing a pregnancy is not being criminalized around this country.
Right.
There are women all the time that tragically lose pregnancies. The baby dies in the womb tragically. I have a very close relative that this happened to. No one is investigating them or conducting investigations for murder against these women.
Right.
That's an absolute falsehood to say that. It's not true. Now we finally get to the part in the article where we're told what happened here.
What actually happened.
Yes.
Okay.
When Marsh took an at-home pregnancy test in November 2022, the positive results scared her. This is all about her. It's all about her. This whole article is about her and how she feels and what she wanted and her scared. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to let my parents down, she said, and I was in a state of shock, which means she knew she had messed up. She had done something she shouldn't have done. She didn't want to let her parents down.
Right.
She didn't seek prenatal care, she said, because she kept having her period. She thought the pregnancy test might have been wrong. An incident report filed by the Orangeburg County Sheriff's Office on the day she lost the pregnancy. I don't know why we can't say the day the baby died or was murdered. Stated that in January 2023, Marsh made an appointment at a Planned Parenthood clinic in Columbia to take the Plan C pill, which would possibly cause an abortion to occur. The report doesn't specify whether she took or even obtained the drug. During an interview at her parents' house, Marsh denied going to Planned Parenthood or taking medicine to induce the abortion, which is very important. She didn't take any steps to perform an abortion, which is legal in the state.
Right.
She's saying, I didn't do anything to bring on this abortion, bring on the murder of my baby. I've never been in trouble. I've never been pulled over. I've never been arrested, Marsh said. I've never even gotten written up in school. She played clarinet as a section leader in the marching band and once performed at Carnegie Hall. In college, she was majoring in biology and planned to become a doctor. It's all about her.
Sure.
South Carolina State Representative Seth Rose, a Democrat in Columbia and one of Marsh's attorneys, called it a really tragic case. It's our position that she lost a child through natural causes, he said. On February 28, 2023, Marsh said she experienced abdominal pain that was way worse than regular menstrual cramps. She went to the emergency room, investigation records show, but left after several hours without being treated. Back at home, she said the pain grew worse. She returned to the hospital, this time by ambulance. Hospital staffers crowded around her, she said, and none of them explained what was happening to her. Bright lights shone in her face. I was scared, she said. This is an adult female.
Yeah.
According to the Sheriff's Department report, hospital staffers told Marsh that she was pregnant and that a fetal heartbeat could be detected. Freaked out and confused, she chose to leave the hospital a second time, she said, and also because her pain had subsided.
So let's stop there for a second.
Yep.
Because basically the first thing, she goes to the hospital and she wasn't treated in time, so she left.
I guess.
Right.
That's what it
The
sounds.
second time she comes, she didn't like what she heard and she left.
Well, she didn't understand and she was scared.
Okay.
But the police reports say
Either
that
way.
they told her.
Either way, she leaves the hospital voluntarily, which is her right.
Yeah.
You
is
went
her
to the
right.
hospital, you should be able to leave.
Mm-hmm. Okay. In the middle of the night, she said, the pain started again. She woke up. She recalled feeling an intense urge to use the bathroom. And when I did, the child came, she said. I screamed because I was scared, because I didn't know what was going on. A baby just came out of you.
Right.
You know how this works. You're an adult female. You know
Studying
how this
biology, right? You have
Yeah.
to know some type of
want to be a doctor.
biological
I was
functions.
scared. I didn't know what was going on. You know exactly what's going on. You're having a baby into the toilet. Her boyfriend at the time called 911. The emergency dispatcher, quote, kept telling me to take the baby out of the toilet, she recalled. I couldn't because I couldn't even keep myself together. First medical responders detected signs of life and tried to perform life-saving measures as they headed to Regional Medical Center in Orangeburg, the incident report said. But at the hospital, Marsh learned that her infant, a girl, had not survived. I kept asking to see the baby, she said. They wouldn't let me.
Well, because they probably didn't let her see the baby because she left the baby in a toilet full of water for however long. That's probably why they didn't let her see the baby.
Right.
But that's just me thinking.
I don't know. Did you want to
put it back in the toilet?
It just
'Cause you didn't want it?
It infuriates me.
Yeah.
Like, you are an adult and you had a baby into a toilet and then you did nothing about it. You just left the baby in the toilet.
Right.
The following day, a sheriff deputy told Marsh in her hospital room that the incident was under investigation, but said that Marsh was currently not in any trouble, which is interesting because at the beginning of the article, she said she had no idea she was under investigation.
Correct.
Now she's saying she was told she was under investigation. Marsh responded that she did not feel as though she had did anything wrong. More than 10 weeks later, nothing about the text message she received from an officer in mid-May implied that the follow-up meeting about the final report was urgent. Oh, it doesn't have to be Wednesday. It can be next week or another week, the officer wrote in an exchange that Marsh shared with KFF Health News. I just have to meet with y'all in person before I can close the case out. I'm so sorry. No problems, I understand, Marsh wrote back. She did.
Great technique.
Yeah.
Great
The
technique.
officer, the detective's just trying to get her to show up.
Yep. That's all he's doing is low-keying it so she
Low-keying
shows
it.
up and it's an easy
Right.
arrest. No big deal.
Yep. She didn't tell her parents or consider hiring a lawyer. I didn't think I needed one, she said. Marsh arranged to meet the officer on June 2nd, 2023. During that meeting, she was arrested. Her boyfriend was not charged. Her father, Herman Marsh, the band director at a local public school in Orangeburg, thought it was a bad joke until it really set in. I told my wife, I said, we need to get an attorney now.
Which is true.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should get a turn.
So the article then goes into pregnancy criminalization. When Marsh lost her pregnancy on March 1st, 2023, women in South Carolina could still obtain an abortion until 20 weeks beyond fertilization or the gestational age of 22 weeks. Okay. So when this happened, in South Carolina, you could still get an abortion up to those time frames. Later that spring, but she already told us that she didn't do anything to
abort the baby.
Right. Okay. Later that spring, South Carolina's Republican-controlled legislature passed a ban that prohibits providers from performing abortions after fetal cardiac activity can be detected, with some exceptions made for cases of rape, incest, or when the mother's life is in jeopardy, which I also disagree with. The law does not allow criminal penalties for women who seek or obtain abortions. Solicitor David Pascoe, a Democrat elected in South Carolina's first judicial circuit, whose office handled Marsh's prosecution, said the issue of abortion and reproductive rights weren't relevant to this case. 100% not relevant in this case. Abortion and your right to kill your baby has nothing to do with
Which is
this
the
case.
entire article.
Yes.
It's super. It's
The
super
whole
wild to me.
article is trying to make this about a
women's
woman
rights to abort their kid.
Right.
Yeah.
And this case has nothing to do with that because she already admitted that she didn't take steps to do that and that she had the baby into a toilet and just let it to die in the toilet.
This was a murder investigation. That's what this was.
Right.
Yeah.
It had nothing to do with that, he told KFF Health News. The arrest warrant alleges that not moving the infant from the toilet at the urging of the dispatcher was ultimately, quote, a proximate cause of her daughter's death. The warrant also cites as the cause of death respiratory complications due to a premature delivery stemming from a maternal chlamydia infection. Marsh said she was unaware of the infection until after the pregnancy loss. Highly doubt that, but Pascoe said the question raised by investigators was whether Marsh failed to render aid to the infant before emergency responders arrived at the apartment, he said. Ultimately, the grand jury decided there wasn't probable cause to proceed with a criminal trial. He said, I respect the grand jury opinion. And that goes back to what we were just talking about, where this was put before a grand jury and the people, like our society, is sick. This woman absolutely should have been indicted.
Yeah.
I think. I mean, based on the very little bit of information we have in this article, because I'm sure they talked about how long the baby was in the toilet.
Right.
So, you have the baby into the toilet, it's in the water, you call 911 to emergency workers get there.
I mean, you're talking minutes. Many minutes.
Right.
10.
And
probably.
no one thought to pull this baby out of the water.
Right.
Disgusting.
And listen, that might not have changed anything because it was a premature baby. So like it probably needed medical care very quickly in order for it to survive, for that baby to survive, potentially. You know what I'm saying? But,
for sure.
But its ability to survive just plummeted, obviously being in water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll skip down through the article. The article's long, but at the very end here, there's a section called I Found My Strength. Zipporah Sumter, one of Marsh's lawyers, said the law enforcement system treated her client as a criminal instead of a grieving mother, which was her decision. Her decisions caused her to be treated like a criminal. And it sounds like the police officers were actually pretty caring, detailed,
like understanding.
Yeah.
Gave her plenty. Whenever let it up to her when she showed up to the police station. Yeah.
There's nothing in there about them treating her poorly.
Right.
This is not a criminal matter, Sumter said. It was not just the fraught climate around pregnancy that caused Marsh to suffer. Quote, race definitely played a factor, said Sumter, who does not believe Marsh received compassionate care when she went to the hospital the first or second time. Well, she kept leaving.
Right. and listen, maybe she didn't.
Yeah.
But that has very little bearing on her leaving her baby that she just gave birth to in a toilet.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like both my girls went to they're currently in high school or recently graduated high school. They've had birthing classes. Like they've seen people
right.
Like, you know what happens. The baby comes out of you and you have to care for it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that hard.
Right. Today, Marsh is still trying to process all that happened. She moved back in with her parents and seen a therapist. She's taking classes at a local community college and hopes to re-enroll at South Carolina State University to earn a 4-year degree. She still wants to become a doctor. She keeps her daughter's ashes on a bookshelf in her bedroom.
Yeah.
I can't imagine. Whatever. Through all of this, I found my strength. I found my voice. I want to help other young women that are in my position now and will be in the future, she said. I always had faith that God was going to be on my side, but I didn't know how it was going to go with the justice system we have today.
The justice system that the God that she just talked about put in place.
Yeah.
To hold people accountable who leave their babies in a toilet.
Yeah.
I had murder. I know of a case that a kid had a baby in a toilet at a local high school and then wrapped the baby up in a trash bag and threw it in a trash can. She was charged. Right.
Was she convicted?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can't.
This article has nothing to do with abortion. It has nothing to do with women's rights. It is a murder investigation.
Right.
That a grand jury looked at and I saw that there wasn't enough to indict, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. And I think it's like you've talked about, it's a blemish on our society. We do not value
It's not a human life. Like, people don't view it as a human life, a 20-week-old baby. They just don't.
Right. But I'm saying generally, I understand people don't view a baby at 20 weeks in the second trimester. Some people don't view that as a human being, as a person, even though it has a heart, he or she has a heartbeat, which doesn't even, having a heartbeat doesn't determine, whether or not it's a human being or not. But I think it's just a microcosm of the greater thing we see going on in this country with the whole trans movement that is moving into doing drag queen stuff for kids, like focused on kids, like drag queen events for kids, having kids at these events, these highly sexualized events, which is grooming. When you're putting kids in front of these highly sexualized things, when you're okay with them reading highly sexualized books, that is a form of grooming. You're trying to get them comfortable with that type of activity. And then, downplaying pedophilia and starting to call it minor attracted people, like all these things. You see all this movement in our country to further lower the value of children and who they are and what they mean to society.
Yeah, it's that, but the other side of that would be like, we're empowering our kids, right? We're letting kids decide whether or not they want to take puberty blockers, whether or not they want to get a sex change. So you're like empowering them, but you won't let them vote, right? We won't let them drive. We won't let them drink, that's the wildest thing to me in the world, right? But we'll let them change their sex.
But what's interesting too is what we are empowering them to do, and what we don't want them empowered to do.
What do you mean?
Like, they're only empowered to go in a certain direction, and that would be the direction of complete evil, in my opinion. We're not empowering them to do the right thing. Like, we're not, as a society, as a culture, like the empowerment is in one direction.
I see. Yeah.
Away from the standard.
Yeah.
That, and when I say the standard, I'm saying like what has generally been accepted practice of decency and the right thing for decades and decades.
Right.
It's a movement to empower them away from that.
Right.
Which, shouldn't be ignored.
Yeah. I mean, here's the deal. If you're pregnant and you have a baby and you didn't take a abortion pill, and you have a baby and it falls into the toilet, like, pick it up, get it out of the toilet. Like,
I'm glad that you feel like we need to clarify this.
Like, I think that's just, that's her mistake here.
Oh, let me ask you this. This wasn't a mistake.
What do you mean?
This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't, I was so confused. I didn't know what was going on.
She just
was scared out of my mind. Like,
I mean, Anthony, that could be true. All of that could be true. But like, we have to, as human beings, if she values life,
right,
which everyone should value life, you take the baby out of the toilet.
Okay. So here's the thing. She did value life. Okay. Allegedly, because in the hospital, she asked to see her baby girl. And now she has the ashes of that baby in her room, on her dresser, on it. So she's portraying that she valued life now
because she won the case,
right,
Anthony.
And that's what I'm trying to point out.
It's all about her.
In the moment, she didn't value life. The only life she valued was her own life. That's the only thing she cared about.
Yeah, it's wild to me that she even called 911. Like that's the like.
Yeah, what does that mean? Why would you do that?
What do you mean?
Like, why would you do that? If you don't think you're doing anything wrong and you don't think you need any, like, why would you call 911 and ask for help?
I mean, in reality, she thought she did something wrong from the very beginning.
Right.
She made a mistake. She got pregnant out of wedlock.
Mm-hmm.
It would have disappointed her parents because, well, maybe not because of out of wedlock, but she was in college, so it was an inconvenience for her to be pregnant. Right. Well, you only get pregnant for one reason, right? You have sex.
Right.
So that was like a choice that she made.
Mm-hmm.
Well, both of them made.
Right.
And she got pregnant, which is what happens when you have sex, right? Like, none of this is like this isn't out of the norm.
This shouldn't be a surprise. You
It's
shouldn't
not
be
a
shocked.
surprise. You shouldn't be shocked. You shouldn't be. Now, you might be scared. I get it. You might be scared.
Right.
Because it's going to change your life, and you have to the direction of your life is going to change, just like anything else, any other circumstance in your life. This is just a big one. So I don't even know what I was saying, but like her saying she was scared, I get it. She was scared. She didn't want to disappoint her parents. Like, I agree with that. Maybe her parents were like conservative. Maybe they thought that she shouldn't be having sex, and she decided to go against her parents' will, even though she's an adult. She's a grown woman. She can do what she wants. But like, she made that choice. I mean, she mentions God. So like, you're like, okay, well, so you made a mistake from the very beginning. And then it's like, then you go to Planned Parenthood to at least have the conversation. So you're taking a step, but you didn't do it. You didn't take the pill, which she told the cops.
Right.
But then this, I mean, it's just,
right.
I don't know. I feel bad for her in that she lost a child that she should have had the great and honorable privilege of caring for the rest of her life.
Right.
And pouring into that kid. Like, she had that option. She didn't pull the baby out of the toilet. So she lost that privilege to do that for the rest of her life. And so like, I feel bad for her in that way. I feel bad if she was treated badly in the hospital. There's no facts to say that she was treated badly.
Right.
You could put a spin on it that they didn't have great bedside manner, but like, you're a grown woman, and at some point you have to stick up for yourself and like, hey, I don't understand what you're saying, or hey, I need my dad here, or hey, I need help. Somebody help me understand what is actually happening here. You know what I mean? Like, we gotta, not everything is handed to you on a platter.
Right.
Like, you have to work if you want things in life like this.
Yeah.
You want to be empowered. Well, be brave, or do the next right thing. Like, if you have questions, ask them. That, I'm sitting here as a bald white guy saying that, but like, that's the thing to do, right? We live in a world now that if you ask questions, you're going to get the help, or hey, I want a second opinion. You're going to get it. Like, I think you're going to get it. Yeah. At least that's been the experience that I hear from all people that I've talked with. Like, I don't know. I mean, she left the hospital.
There's no excuse for it. I don't care. Like,
it's victim mentality, which we always talk about. It's this constant, woe is me. I was wrong.
Excuse to
leave your baby in a toilet.
Right.
There's not.
Like, in my mind, there's nothing you can say to me that justifies that and makes it okay. Like
if she pulls the baby out,
and I know that's not what you're saying.
No, if she pulls the baby out of the toilet and the EMS shows up and she's like, I had the baby, it fell in the toilet. I pulled the baby out. I wrapped it in a towel. Here's the baby. She's not even getting looked at as being charged.
Right.
No one's even looking at that.
No.
She's probably never going to hear from a detective, but she left the baby in the toilet, and the autopsy happened, and they found out that the baby probably had water in its lungs, or its body temperature was super cold because she didn't care for it.
Right.
It was an inconvenience for her, so she left it in the toilet.
Right.
Or she was scared, and it doesn't matter. It's not a defense to be scared. It's just not.
Right.
Or I was freaked out. I didn't know what to do. That's not an excuse. There's still consequences for your actions.
Right.
Or inactions in her case.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
But you're right. It is the grand jury, I guess.
Grand jury made a decision.
It's a picture or a view of where our society's headed.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't know what grand juries are like in that state. I don't know if they have to put it before a grand jury or if they just chose to put it before.
I think this is a good one to put in a grand jury.
Okay.
I think so. There's more powers in a grand jury. Like, you can get other records, or you can make people testify that wouldn't necessarily want to testify, at least my experience with grand juries.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's a bad thing, because you're trying to get the most information possible in front of people.
Right.
And I think that's good. That's a good thing. Instead of just a DA making a decision to charge.
Yeah. I think what's interesting is that the DA was a Democrat.
That is interesting.
And in the article, he says flat out, this case has nothing to do with abortion rights.
It just goes to show, like, when we read stuff or when we hear like snippets of things, we can't just, wow, that's crazy. Like, you have to look into things now.
Right.
Because it's just, there's a narrative that the media and probably the culture at large wants everyone to believe and fall in line with. So they're going to manipulate us as best they can to get us to agree with them or to fall in line.
And that's on both sides, because
that is definitely on both sides.
You know, because there's times where I'll see something on X, like I'm a big X guy.
Yeah.
I'm a good follow on X, but
yeah.
you know, if I'm on X and I'll see certain things and I'll be like, that is crazy. But then I'll do some fact checking on my end before because I've gotten caught. I've reposted something or liked something and then have realized, well, the way that was worded was not exactly correct.
Yeah.
Like a perfect example is these numbers at the border we were talking about. A lot of people were painting this as this happened during the Biden-Harris administration.
Right.
Well, that's not true. We don't. This has been over, you know, possibly 2 decades.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, all these people didn't just come in during Biden-Harris administration. A lot of them did,
but they did it for clicks.
Right.
For the shock value.
Right.
Where if they were honest, they would actually show us what happened between when Biden took office. They would do the Trump era and they would do.
Yeah.
That can't be that hard. Like, that's the thing. Like, they have all these spreadsheets. They have all these numbers. They gather all this information.
Right.
Why not do it honestly?
Right.
They don't do it honestly because they want to manipulate their viewership.
The only thing that they have done, honestly, and maybe they don't know, you know, I'm sure they know, like, at least the spread, like from this year to this year, which wasn't shared. But you know
why?
Shared? But what they do know, and what has been proven, is that the amount of illegal aliens coming into the country during the Biden-Harris administration has far exceeded any administration before them, and they have showed the numbers.
And now that we know, do the right thing.
Right.
That would go a long way with someone like me. Hey, we're going to find you, murderer, and you're going back to your country. We're going to find you. You have 90 days. You have 30 days to turn yourself in. After that, you're done. We're going to come find you and we're going to ship you back.
We're going to send a drone in. We're going to drone strike you.
Yeah. Oh, man.
But the problem is a lot of these local municipalities, like cities and stuff, are not working with ICE at all.
Yeah.
They're not even reporting with ICE. They're not even checking in with ICE when they have someone. Yeah. So, yeah, that's the other part of the problem. All right, good.
No, that's
what were you going to say?
No, I was just going to say, like, the feds have so many resources. The problem is they don't have enough manpower, but I don't know that I want to give them more manpower. You know what I mean? Like, to do a quick search on, you know, whoever.
Right.
Anthony Weaver. Let me go find him. He has a cell phone somewhere. I can go find him. Like, you can do that.
Yeah.
The federal agencies can do that. So go find him. Like, figure it out.
You know what I think you'll see in coming years? Like, I don't know how long or how far out, and I think a lot of it depends on what administrations get in office. I think you are going to start seeing like a big push for federal police agency.
Oh yeah, for sure, 100%.
And when we start seeing that, man, it's getting hard.
You're going in a bunker, huh?
It's getting harder and harder and harder for me to recognize that I am part of the justice system in this country. And it's not because of what the left is saying. It's because of what is actually being carried out. And this next story goes to that point.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Like, the longer I'm in law enforcement, and I like my job.
So do
I've always liked my job.
I've
hated parts of it, but I like my job. I think it's a great job, but it's a
righteous job.
Yeah. And it's difficult to, though, be the arm that carries the sword, as we talk in Romans 13, right? That God ordains and puts in place when you hear some of the things that are going on.
Right.
And just, you're like, what are we doing?
That you're connected to because you're part of the justice
part
system.
of it. Yeah. I've been in government my entire adult life.
Military,
I've been the military, you know, Lancaster City Police, now this new job. Like, I've been in the government. That's all I've done.
Right.
And it's like, and we talk so much trash on the government, but like we both agree the government is vital.
It's a common grace.
Yeah. I mean, yeah,
it's needed.
suppresses wickedness and it rewards good doing.
That is the role
That's
of it.
the role of it.
That's why we're so hard on it, because so often we see it doing the opposite.
Correct. Right.
And this next story is a perfect example.
Yeah. Good segue. Dude, good segue, man. Dude, you're a media mogul professional, dude.
That'll get muted out, people. So this is an article out of the Daily Signal. The name of the article is Clinton appointed federal judge orders taxpayer funded transgender surgery for Indiana inmate. I don't really care who appointed this federal judge. Obviously, this organization does.
Okay, so now listen to the title of that article,
right,
and then the actual article, and
right,
you'll see that's probably in a line.
Yeah. So I'm not going to read this whole article, but I'll read down through my highlighted parts here. A federal judge ruled that the Indiana Department of Corrections must pay for an incarcerated baby murderer to turn his penis into an imitation vagina on the pretext that the Eighth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, the one prohibiting cruel and unusual punishment, requires it. In 2001, 19-year-old, I'm not going to say this
don't say his name.
Moron's name, strangled his 11-month-old stepdaughter while her mother, Linda Thomas, was at work. He showed no remorse for the crime, later telling a prison official, "I killed the little bleep bleep." He was convicted and sentenced to 55 years in prison.
Not enough.
No. That's
a capital murder case.
He should have died.
Yeah.
On the day he murdered my child, I personally observed plaintiff with a fresh bleeding tattoo of my child's name on his arm, recalled Thomas, who obtained a divorce soon afterward. For nearly 2 decades, nearly 20 years, this suspect was housed as a male in a male prison without raising a fuss. Meanwhile, the culture outside was changing rapidly. In 2018, the suspect heard about, quote, gender identity from another male inmate who went by the name of Pearl and showed him pamphlets from California state prisons. California has housed dozens of trans-identifying males in female prisons. We've talked about this in prior podcasts. Evil. You're now putting predators with females. Not surprisingly, California's prison pregnancy rate has skyrocketed because of this. Richardson began to self-identify as a transgender in 2020 and obtained cross-sex hormones. He used the name Autumn Cordelion, and that false name appears in the lawsuit filed by the ACLU against the Indiana Department of Corrections. Suspect testified that he chose the name Autumn after an ex-girlfriend from high school. Presumably, she would find his appropriation of her name offensive.
That's the best part of the article.
It's definitely a right-leaning organization. Anyways, in 2022, he lodged a sexual harassment complaint claiming that his cellmate had raped him in 2005 and that he had stabbed his cellmate in retaliation. In a later deposition for his federal lawsuit, suspect revealed a pattern of having sex with men that dated back to before his incarceration. During his brief marriage to Thomas, the mother of the child he murdered, suspect worked as a janitor in a pornographic bookstore and would engage in lewd acts with male customers while pretending to be a girl. I mean, this guy is just, he's possessed by evil. I felt I was only a woman when a man used me, he claimed. He also said he stole female clothing to wear so that he could, for a second, realize the girl inside. Some of the suspect's statements may be self-motivated. On January 4th, suspect requested a reduction of his sentence, though he's not eligible for release until 2027, claiming that the circumstances that resulted in the crime are no longer present due to his transgender identity. So think about that. He's now trying to trans out, and he claims that because of that, circumstances that resulted in his identity or circumstances that resulted in the crime are no longer present because he's not a male,
right?
He's a female,
right.
Under the current policies of the Indiana Department of Corrections, the suspect was allowed to transition both chemically and socially, but the department refused to sponsor gender transition surgeries under a law the Indiana legislator enacted last year. With the help of the Indiana ACLU, suspect sued to obtain gender transition surgeries. Suspect demanded a list of, quote, surgeries to reach my ideal self, which was presented as evidence in court, included a vagina, breast implants, a brow lift, a brow reduction, a tummy tuck, gluteal implants, a Brazilian butt lift, a uterus transplant, hair removal, and wigs.
Dude, that's all the things I want.
A tummy tuck.
Dude, I want a tummy tuck because he's fat. Like, come on, man. Like,
you want the Brazilian butt lift?
Dude, I think I could use a butt lift, actually. I have a
we gotta talk to your wife.
Dude, I have a small butt. I think I need to do like...
Do you have one of the...
It just goes away.
Like it's a flat... Like,
a flat back.
Your back and your butt are all like...
Yeah,
in the
and
same...
my thigh, because I have nice thighs. So like they're bigger, but like I don't do enough like...
And you got like thunder thighs. So it's like...
good thighs, man. Road marching
butt,
thighs.
Boom.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, it's all like one. Yeah, it's so funny, dude. Dude, so he wants all these he demanded all these surgeries.
He didn't get
all
but
of
he
them
later amended his demands to 2 surgeries.
I just want 2 things.
A surgery to remove his testicles and a penile inversion.
Take my
insane.
testicles. What are we talking about?
On September 17th, federal judge Richard Young, that's federal judge Richard Young
Boo.
of the Southern District of Indiana, ruled in favor of the suspect, handing down a preliminary injunction which he would renew every 90 days until Indiana carried out the surgery. This verdict seemed offensive to the taxpayers of Indiana. So this is a taxpayer-funded surgeries now. Young's astonishing rationale was that refusing to provide a prisoner with genital gender transition surgeries counted as cruel and unusual punishment under the 8th Amendment of the Constitution. He breezily dismissed the state's argument that these surgeries permanently sterilize the subject by appealing to informed consent procedures. But the state's argument is a good one. What is truly cruel and unusual is allowing mentally troubled inmates to permanently mutilate their bodies based upon their current feelings. So here we are. Yeah.
Dude, you're going to have to put a thing in the beginning of this one.
Why?
Like one of those
warnings? Why?
Dude, you're talking about...
Do you think I got to put a warning on it?
I mean, you're pretty raw, dude. We're talking about changing someone's like genitalia, cutting off his balls. Dude, he literally said, cut my balls off and invert my penis. Like,
that's what he said.
Make my penis that is out, make it an innie.
My goodness. What are we doing in this country?
Paid by taxpayers.
Yeah.
What is happening, Anthony?
And that, Gary, is why local elections are important. Because that's a judge that was elected.
That's a federal. Didn't you say it was a federal judge?
Was it a federal judge?
Yeah, federal judge.
It was a judge in Indiana. It might have been a state judge. It's not a federal judge.
Oh, I thought it was a federal judge, dude.
Oh yeah, it does say a federal judge.
Yeah, boo on him.
Of the Southern District of Indiana.
Because he was a Clinton appointed one. That's how that article started.
Yeah, you're right. Federal judge of Southern District of Indiana. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Totally.
So yeah.
Because it was a federal lawsuit, so it goes to the federal court system.
So, yeah.
Dude,
elections matter.
Boo on this whole thing, dude.
So I read this and I was like, how have we gotten to this point as a country? Think about this. If you would have told me 20 years ago,
you sound like a geriatric dude. I love it.
No, but seriously,
I'm with you, dude. I'm with you.
Like, if you would have told me 20 years ago that this would be a thing, if you would have been like, no.
So I did a tiny little bit of research on this.
Okay.
Like the gender, what is it called? Gender reversing?
Gender affirming surgery or gender.
Whatever it is. Yeah. Like cutting your balls off.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's a very new thing. So I looked, Wikipedia. All right. Basically there's 2 sentences in the beginning.
Okay.
There's mention of this in like the Roman, like the first century, like 200 AD.
Okay.
Right. Nothing until like 1912. And it was like 3 or 4 people, like 1912, 1938, 1948. And then it became bam.
In 1938?
No, like you know what I mean? Like
right.
Until recent. Dude, that's less than 100 years ago.
Right.
You know, that's what I'm saying. So like throughout all of history, there's a mention of this in the Roman Empire. Like that's it.
Right.
This is crazy what we're doing, in my opinion.
Well, it's basically state sponsored mutilation of human beings.
Talk about like cruel and unreasonable punishment is like taking a sex offender and cutting off his genitalia. Mm-hmm. That potentially is cruel and unusual punishment.
Right.
Potentially.
But makes sense.
Right. They'll find another way. But anyway, I don't think that would work. But like, we still do castration, or they still give pills to sex offenders, like where they have it up until very recently, giving them pills to lower their desire or whatever, So like,
Right.
cruel and unusual punishment is exactly what he's asking for. Like, it's not cruel and unusual. There's no punishment in not giving it to him. It's who you are. It's your person. It's your very being. It's the body that was given to you.
Mm-hmm.
It was the brain that was given to you. It was it's the soul that was given to you, the will, the emotions, all of that was given to you by someone else. It's not yours. You didn't create it. Right.
Right.
And you're saying, I don't want any of that. I want my own thing. The cruel and unusual thing is to remove what the creator has given you.
Yeah.
And making it what you want. Do what's right in your own eyes.
Mm-hmm.
That's what this is.
Pronouncing yourself as God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's nothing new. It's just, it's morphing, it's showing itself in this.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's nothing new.
Yeah. And what we were talking about earlier is, it's one thing. It's one thing. And if an adult wants to do this to themselves,
right. You want to pay for it. I'm not saying it's right. I'm saying, but what yeah. Go ahead. Yeah. Sorry, I cut you off.
But what I'm saying is the move to like making it appropriate, sought after, praised to be done to kids, like what we were talking about earlier. This move, this pendulum swing to like make this mainstream, to mutilate these kids who haven't even hit puberty.
Yeah. Most haven't even hit puberty. And that's like the prime time.
You're throwing puberty blockers in them. And, having come in contact with some of that on the job, I can tell you that these things that they're giving these kids that want to do this are completely jacking these kids up.
Yeah.
I mean, it's insane how messed up this is making kids. And no one wants to talk about it. Oh yeah, well,
Well, you talk about it, you get canceled. That's the thing, right?
Right.
Like,
yeah. I just don't know how we got to this place. Well, I do know how we got.
Yeah, I was going to say, how
I know how we got to this place.
Romans 1 and Romans 2. Read it.
It caused me to think about how this happened, and I was like, really, we have no one to blame except ourselves. And it's because we've chosen, and when I say we, I'm saying we as people, as sinful people, have chosen to step outside of the standard. And when you look at things like this, when you look at things of a sexual nature, the plan of God was sex was supposed to be one male, one female, sex between them in the confines of marriage. So the plan, the standard was creation of a male, creation of a female, and sex was confined to one male, one female in marriage. And as soon as we as a culture began to accept that
anything outside of that,
we started down this road. We started down this road many, many years ago. Okay. So we can sit here and be disgusted by it, but really we have to look at ourselves and be like, well, back in whenever it became okay for, men and women to engage in sex outside of marriage, and we just, it's not that big of a deal. It's not that big of a deal for a man and woman to live together before they're married and have sexual relationships. It's not that big of a deal. As soon as you step outside that standard, you only step further and further into perversity and evil. So we have no one to blame but ourselves. Sure.
Yeah, but the worst part is that now it's government funded, taxpayer funded.
Right.
So that's the big deal. Like you said, people are going to do what people do individually. But listen, dude, you're incarcerated. You've murdered
an 11-month-old.
Yeah. And you don't care about it. You're currently serving your time to society because of what you've done. You don't have the rights that we do on the outside, right?
Right.
We're not on the outside. I can go get my balls cut off if I want, right? That doesn't make it right. I'm just saying,
right.
I have that freedom to do that. You're incarcerated. You can't.
You lost that freedom.
You lost the freedom because of the choices that you made, 20 years ago.
Right. But instead, we're going to force the American public to pay for it.
Yeah, those in Indiana. If I was in Indiana, I'd be furious. I'm sure that's happening in Pennsylvania. I'm sure it is.
Oh, I'm sure.
I'm sure it is.
I'm sure it's happening everywhere.
I'm sure my taxpayer money is going to give them certain pills and whatever.
Yeah. It's the appeasement of evil, the celebration of evil. And I think you're right. It's one thing if people in the freedom and sinfulness of their own heart decide to make decisions. It's another thing when the government, who has been tasked with protecting its people, praising those who are doing the right thing, sponsors it and forces those who are trying to do the right thing and live the right way to pay for things like that, and to criminalize not supporting it, or to come down on people who don't want to support it or are against it,
or even who speak out against it.
Yeah,
who have 100 people listening to them.
Right.
Like, what are we doing? Like,
right.
You're going to come at us because we're not happy about this thing that's happening. It doesn't even affect us.
Right.
And maybe that's what they would say. It doesn't affect you. Keep your mouth shut. Well, it does affect us. At some point, it will.
Right.
So that's what makes America great. Is we should be able to speak our minds.
We should
as
be able
individuals. We should be able to.
Yeah.
And he should be able to speak out. He should be able to speak out, and he should be yell and scream all he wants, but the government should still say no.
Yeah, a judge in the American justice system should say, you murdered a baby. Bye.
Yeah.
Go back to your cell.
We're not cutting your balls off.
We're not
giving you
paying for this.
We're not giving you a Brazilian butt lift. Dude,
it's wild.
Yeah, it's super sad. Like, it really is sad, but it is Romans 1 playing out.
Yeah.
I
completely
mean,
turned over.
Completely turned over.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've asked for what we've got what we've asked for, right?
Yeah.
I want to be my own God. I want to do whatever I want. I want to do what's right in my own eyes. The law, or what is right, I don't care about. I'm going to make something new right.
Yeah.
And it's literally like the grass that withers and the flowers that fade, just like everybody's going to die. It all fades away. It's all meaningless. It's all meaningless. And it doesn't mean like it's all going to go away, but thankfully the word of the Lord endures forever.
Yeah.
And I am so grateful that that we have unnumbered books, the Bible, that we can easily find. You can get it on your phone and we can trust in it. It's reliable. It points us to truth.
Yeah.
And the eternal gospel that never changes.
It's the standard.
And without it, we are lost. And we're showing that.
We're showing that right now.
We're showing it in the just like we talked about the grand jury that made this decision on this thing. We're showing that they don't care about this infant that was left in it. Think about that. The baby was left in a toilet, right? Think about it. We have a border that's just letting whoever wants to come in, criminals, sex offenders, murderers, all these people just willy-nilly coming in. That's your word, right? Willy-nilly. And we shouldn't be surprised by it. It's kind of what we've asked for.
And so I would say, if you're listening to this podcast and you are listening to, you and I, Gary, talk about this, and you're like, I can't believe this stuff is happening in our country, then you have to admit that there's a standard. And so the question then is, what is your standard? What is your standard?
Yeah. Where does your standard come from?
Where does your standard come from? And so you and I, Gary, we know what our standard is,
right?
But there's a lot of people that disagree with this stuff that don't know where their standard comes from. They just think that it was invented in their own minds. Well, no, that's why we're at where we're at, because people have invented their own standards. They have said, I am God.
And in reality,
I create.
If their standard isn't the word of God, if it's not, but it's still somewhat conservative,
right?
The reason it's conservative is the grace of God.
Yeah, it's common.
So it's literally common grace toward that person.
Right.
Which is crazy to me.
Right.
And they should be grateful to the Creator that they've been held back.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because they're very their true being, it wants evil.
Mm-hmm.
But for some reason, for God's glory, it has held them back.
Yeah. The common grace of God has come on them and exposed to them the evilness of this, and has created in them a standard that more closely aligns with the word, but yet they have not yet turned to the one who saves.
Yeah.
Like to the word.
Yeah. And listen, like Anthony and I are talking like we're some righteous people. We've all failed. We've all missed the standard. All of us. It's just to what degree have we missed the standard?
Right.
And like what mark have we missed, or what line have we jumped over?
Right.
It's still a line we've jumped over. All of us have jumped over the line. There's just one who hasn't.
Right.
And I put my faith in him, and that's Jesus.
Right.
So like he lived the perfect life that I didn't live. His standard was perfect. He perfectly like kept all of them, all of the standards he kept, and he paid the penalty as if he wasn't the one who kept the standard. He's as if this judge who is saying, yes, give him the surgery, remove his balls. He paid that. He paid the penalty for that woman who left her baby in the toilet. Should she repent and believe?
Right.
Like what an awesome God.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And no one else could bring us out of that. And, you know, dude, there's views in my life, I'm sure, that are not to his standard. And I need to repent from those.
Right.
You know what I mean? And hopefully my mindset as I age and as I mature and as I learn the standards of God, my standards come more in line with the standard, because there is a standard. And I hope that my standard is closer than it was a week ago to the word of God. And I hope in a month it's even closer.
Right.
You know, I truly hope that.
Yeah. And I think
we can't change. We can't, like, as much as we talk about this stuff, we can't change people's minds. You know, that's the work of God in someone's own very being. He's worked in my very being and has made me, and he's made you change our views. And I hope that our listeners and those who would stumble across this silly little low expectations podcast would turn to the one whose standard is correct.
Right.
And follow after him.
Yeah. And a perfect example of that is as I was looking at this last article with this Indiana judge, like I was right away, I wanted to like be like, oh, the LGBT community, like we moved in that direction because the LGBTQ community like got us moving in that direction. And I was like convicted because I'm like, no, this started way before then. And I started thinking in my own life how flippantly we as a culture treat sex outside of marriage.
Yeah.
And how even
and now that's like normal.
That's like a normal thing.
It's a normal thing.
And like, I don't even, you know, I believe it's a sin. I know it's a sin. Like God's word says it's a sin, but how like, kind of like flippant I am with it.
Yeah.
You know, like when I look at other people, friends of mine who engage in it, dear friends of mine who have lived with their boyfriend, girlfriend, you know, yeah, like I'm just like, man, not that big of a deal. But that veer off standard got us to where we are right now as a culture, because we've accepted something outside of the standard set by God. And as soon as we accepted one step outside of that standard, it only takes a couple more steps to get more and more and more and more off the standard and deeper into evil.
Yeah. I mean, if you just think of like I'm not a history guy, but like in the United States in the, I don't know if it's 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, it's not that long ago. If you were sleeping around, you were not part of normal society. You kept that hidden. You kept it hidden. You were shamed. And it was not like something that you celebrated.
Right.
I'm just talking man, woman. Like I'm just talking that. Like that was a thing. Wearing a bathing suit. I mean, and think about, I mean, this is a whole nother topic, but like literally a bathing suit. If you wore what we wear now and on the beach, if you wore that in the 20s or 30s, you would literally be arrested.
Yeah.
And you would go to an insane asylum. Like people would be like, what are you doing? Like, this isn't how we dress. This isn't how we, and I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm just saying like society has changed dramatically. And if we look around, I don't think it's for the positive. That's what that's what I'm saying. And I'm not saying bathing suits. I'm just saying in general, that was just an example.
You're drawing a line at bathing suits.
I'm not actually. Yeah.
No, I know what you're saying now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're not evolving better. Like, so this whole Darwinism thing is crazy. We're not evolving better.
No.
Like we've developed ways to kill people in a very much drones. We've developed a way to kill people in a much easier way.
Right.
Like we're not evolving to save people in a better way.
Well, these last two articles we just read
crazy,
are showing we're not evolving in a positive direction.
Right. Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So, anyways, there's hope.
There is hope. Yeah.
We shared it. It's not in
and one day all of this stuff is going to go away.
Yeah.
It's all going to go away and everything is going to be made right. And there will be a new heavens and new earth where there will not be even a pull toward this like sinful behavior. And I long for that day.
Right.
I truly do, for my own life.
Yeah.
And for the society that I live in. I want peace.
Yeah.
Like true shalom, like rest.
Yeah.
I mean, it's chaotic out there. It's chaotic. And it shouldn't be. It's not meant to be that way.
Yeah.
We weren't created for chaos. And
there is a lot of chaos, though.
there is a lot of chaos.
Yeah. Hey,
Dude, I heard, we got to look into this, but I heard there's a local prison that is giving a fake, what's fentanyl and heroin? What's the drug?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what it's called. It's like a fake drug to like calm our prisoners.
Okay.
I actually want to do some research, and that's going to be for the next episode.
Okay. Well,
So I heard there's
never
prisons that are like basically asking their inmates to take these drugs, which are to calm them. But I don't know. I don't know, man. There's a teaser.
Well, that's quite a teaser.
I'm gonna look
Because I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm going to look into it.
Here's something I just saw that's super interesting that I've talked about on the podcast before. I think I've talked it on the Diakonos podcast.
The OG.
I brought up this idea, like, mental health in law enforcement is this huge thing.
Yeah.
Mental health. How can we help our officers? And one thing I talked about on at least one of our podcasts, and I don't know if it was you or someone else, was this idea, of a sabbatical for officers or a break, because in the military, you might go do 12, 18-month stint.
Yeah.
And for sure, if you're in a combat zone, you're seeing way more horrible things than your most police officers see. But it's a much shorter stint. You get a break. You come back, you get a break. You might have to go back and do another tour, but there's always like a break between those tours. And one of the things they found in law enforcement is the cumulative effect of the job.
Right.
An officer does a job for 20, 25, 30 years. That has such a toll on their life. And I brought up this idea, like, what about building in breaks into an officer's career to give them just a little bit of a break and get them off the street, especially if they've worked on the street a long time and stuff. So I just saw this article of a police department that did it. The first time I've seen any police department do this, where they built in sabbaticals into their officers' careers. So every 3 years, their officers get a full month off. They may not come into the police station. They don't go to court. They cannot have any contact with the police department. They're off. They're paid, but it's like a complete sabbatical and break
every 3 years.
Every 3 years for 1 month.
Dude.
And I was like, wow,
that's progressive.
It's so progressive. I hate to even admit it.
It is very progressive, but let's talk about that again next time.
Here's the thing. There's so much lip service being given in law enforcement about mental health in law enforcement. And most of the stuff I see going on, I'm like, this isn't helping.
Right.
This is doing nothing for your people. Like, we can get into it later.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was super interesting article. And I was like, oh man.
Yeah.
I want to dive into it a little bit. Think about it.
So are you going to watch any postseason baseball?
I haven't yet.
Will you?
Are the Phillies are in,
Phillies
right?
are in. They don't start. I mean, by the time this episode drops, it'll be a couple days.
Okay.
No, they would have just played.
Okay.
So
I usually
you watch some Phillies.
I watch some Phillies. Right. I
hope they don't blow it this year, man.
I don't like baseball.
They've been terrible toward the end.
Baseball. So my Packers, what a tough loss here against Minnesota recently.
Okay.
Love came back. Jordan Love came back, and Jordan Love has a sad story. His dad was a police officer, and his dad committed suicide. Now,
when he was young, or
when Jordan Love was like a young teen, I think.
Okay. Oh man, that's a terrible time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always a terrible time, but like
Right.
as a young teen, that'd be.
Yeah, there was something going on. Like he had some medical stuff going on too, and they think maybe like a mix of medication
Like led him
got
to-
his mind not right and stuff too. Like I don't know all the details, but yeah. I like Jordan Love. I think he's
Okay.
going to be a really good quarterback. I like his way. He doesn't have that arrogant edge that Aaron Rodgers had.
Okay.
So we'll see. I know you want to talk about baseball, but I'm talking about football.
Yeah, well,
because I don't care about your
You're
baseball.
the boss. You're the boss.
I'm not the boss.
Dude, that's the wrap to
Don't
episode
say
number 20.
Do not say anything, Gary. Just let it.
Well,
go.
how do you end it? Like it's got to end
Just let
somehow.
it go. Let it go. Let it go.
I'm done.
Just don't say anything.
Okay.
Stupid.